Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. The morning sun filtered through the trees, casting a golden glow over the small town of Westwood. It was a peaceful place, nestled between the rolling hills and dense forests, the kind of town where everyone knew each other. On any given day, children could be found playing in the woods, racing down the quiet streets on their bikes, or skipping stones by the river. But today was different. Today, something extraordinary was about to happen. Ethan, Lila, Kai, and Arya were 4 of those children, though they were hardly the best of friends. They knew each other from school, of course, but their paths didn't tee often cross. Ethan was the bold one, always looking for the next adventure. Lila, with her calm demeanor, often kept to herself, preferring the quiet of the riverside. Kai was curious and inventive, his mind always buzzing with new ideas, while Arya was strong, steady, and dependable, a natural leader in her quiet way. It started when Ethan, on one of his usual expeditions through the forest, stumbled upon something unusual. Hidden beneath the roots of an old oak tree, he found a small stone, no bigger than his palm, glowing with a fiery red light. He picked it up, feeling the warmth radiate through his fingers, and grinned. This was no ordinary rock. At nearly the same time, in different corners of the town, the others found stones of their own. Lila discovered a smooth blue stone while wading in the river. Kaisa's was light as a feather, swirling with gusts of wind, found atop a hill where he liked to watch the clouds. Ariada's stone, solid and earthy brown, revealed itself to her during a walk through her family's garden. Each child was drawn to their stone as if it were calling to them. When they held them, they felt a strange connection, not only to the stone but to something much larger, something ancient and powerful. That night, fate, or perhaps the stones, brought them together. A town festival was in full swing, with fireworks lighting up the sky, music filling the air, and the smell of sweet treats wafting from food stalls. The children, each holding their stone, found themselves drawn to the town square. Without exchanging a word, they gathered at the old fountain in the center of the square. Ethan was the first to speak, holding up his fiery stone. "Does anyone else have one of these?" His eyes sparkled with excitement. Lila, Kai, and Arya hesitated, but one by one they revealed their stone. As they held them close, the stones began to glow brighter, the air around them humming with energy. Before they could say anything, a beam of light shot up from the center of the fountain, encasing them in a swirling vortex of color. The festival sounds faded. The children tried to scream, but no sound escaped their lips. The world spun faster and faster until they were surrounded by nothing but light. And then just as quickly as it started, it stopped. When they opened their eyes, they were no longer in Westwood. They stood on a vast grassy plain, the air around them thick with the scent of earth and ash. In the distance, mountains towered against the horizon, their peaks glowing red as molten lava flowed down their sides. To the west, they could see a shimmering body of water stretching out as far as the eye could see, while to the east, floating islands hovered in the sky, caught in a never-ending windstorm. What just happened? Lila whispered, clutching her blue stone tightly. Kai, the curious one, was already inspecting his surroundings. "This isn't your home," he said, his voice filled with awe. "Where are we?" Before anyone could answer, a figure appeared before them. He seemed to step out of the very air itself, materializing in a swirl of wind and light. He was tall and cloaked in robes that shimmered with all the colors of the elements: red like fire, blue like water, green like the earth, and silver like the wind. "I'm Moran," the figure said, his voice calm but filled with power. "And you children have been chosen." "Chosen for what?" Ethan asked, stepping forward. He was never one to shy away from a challenge. "To restore balance," Orion replied. "The elemental realm is in danger. The forces of fire, water, wind, and earth are no longer in harmony. If the balance is not restored, both this world and your own will be consumed by chaos." Lila's eyes widened. "What?" "Each of you has been given a stone," Orion said, gesturing to the stones they still held. "These stones represent the elements, and through them, you will be able to control their power. But with great power comes great responsibility. You must journey to the heart of each elemental region, fire, water, wind, and earth, and complete the trials that await you. Only by doing so will you restore balance and prevent the catastrophe that loomed." Ethan's eyes lit up at the prospect of an adventure. "So we have to save the world." Orion nodded gravely. "Yes, but it will not be easy. The trials will test you, not just in strength, but in heart. Only by working together can you hope to succeed. The children exchanged nervous glances. This was more than any of them had ever expected. But there was no turning back now. They had been chosen, and the fate of two worlds rested on their shoulders. Where do we start? Afria asked, her voice steady despite the weight of the task ahead. Arian pointed to the mountains in the distance, where the lava flowed like rivers of fire. Your first trial lies in the fire plains there. You must calm the flames that threaten to engulf the land. Without another word, Orion disappeared, leaving the children alone in the vast, unfamiliar landscape. "Elves," Ethan said, trying to sound confident. "I guess we should get going." They set off toward the mountains, the heat of the fire plains growing more intense with each step. The ground beneath their feet turned from soft grass to cracked, dry earth. The air was thick with smoke, and the sky above them glowed a dull, angry red. By the time they reached the edge of the fire plain, sweat dripped from their foreheads and their clothes clung to their skin. But there was no time to rest in the distance. They could see the source of the flames, a massive volcano spewing molten lava that threatened to consume everything in its path. "This is insane," Lila muttered, wiping her brow. "How are we supposed to stop that?" Ethan grinned, holding up his fiery stone with it. The others looked at him skeptically, but they had no other choice. The flames were spreading fast, and if they didn't act soon, the entire region would be lost. As they approached the volcano, the ground shook beneath their feet, and a burst of lava shot into the sky. Ethan stepped forward, his stone glowing brightly in his hand. He could feel the heat pulsing through him, as if the fire itself was calling to him. "Ethan, wait," Lila called, but he didn't listen. Driven by his excitement, he raised the stone high above his head, commanding the fire to stop. For a moment, it seemed to work. The lava slowed, the flames flickered, and the heat lessened. But then just as quickly, the fire roared back to life, even more intense than before. "Ethan, you can try and do it alone," Arya shouted, grabbing him by the arm and pulling him back. "We need to work together." Reluctantly, Ethan stepped back, realizing his mistake. The fire was too powerful for one person to control. They needed to combine their strength. Coyote stepped forward, holding his wind stone. "I've got an idea. If we can use the wind to blow the flames away, maybe we can cool the lava." Lila nodded, her blue stone already glowing with water's energy, "And I can use the water to help cool it down." Together, they stood in a circle, each holding their stone. Ethan focused on controlling the fire, keeping it from spreading, while Kai called forth a powerful gust of wind. Lila summoned a stream of water from the air, sending it cascading over the lava, cooling it as it hardened into solid rock. Arya, with her earth stone, grounded them all, stabilizing the ground beneath their feet as the volcano trembled. Slowly but surely, the flames died down, the lava cooled, and the fire plains returned to their natural state. Breathing heavily, the children collapsed onto the ground, exhausted but triumphant. "We did it," Ethan panted, a grin spreading across his face. "We actually did it." Lila smiled, wiping the sweat from her forehead. "Yeah, but that was just the first trial. We've got 3 more to go." As they lay there, catching their breath, they couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. They had faced their first challenge and come out victorious. But deep down, they knew that the road ahead would only get harder. The balance of the elements was fragile, and they had barely scratched the surface of the dangers that lay ahead. Oriana's words echoed in their minds. "The trials will test you not just in strength, but in heart." They had passed the test of fire, but what would the next trial bring? Without any time to waste, they stood up, their stones still glowing faintly in their hands. The next trial awaited them, and they had to be ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The children stood at the edge of the fire plains, the lava now solidified into dark, jagged rock beneath their feet. The oppressive heat had begun to dissipate, and a cool breeze swept through the air, carrying with it the scent of something fresh, like rain on the horizon. Their next destination was clear, the aquatic kingdom. Kai glanced at the horizon where the shimmering water stretched out endlessly. "Looks like the next trial is going to be wet," he said with a smirk. "Good," Lila replied, her eyes still glowing faintly from the power of the water stone in her hand. "I could use a break from all this heat." Without another word, they set off, their path leading them away from the fiery mountains and toward the distant shore. As they walked, the terrain gradually shifted, the ground became softer beneath their feet, the dry earth turning to damp soil. Soon, the grass became lush and green, and the air was filled with the sound of rushing water. Rivers crisscrossed the landscape, flowing toward the vast ocean that now loomed before them. The aquatic kingdom was unlike anything they'd ever seen. Towers of coral rose from the sea, their vibrant colors shimmering beneath the sun. The water itself was impossibly clear, revealing schools of fish darting beneath the surface. But it was not just a paradise. Dark clouds loomed on the horizon, and the ocean, sand waves crashed against the shore with a violent intensity that belied the beauty of the place. Lila saw it pounded in her chest as she stepped closer to the water, the stone in her hand pulsed with energy, responding to the powerful pull of the ocean. She knew this trial would test her more than the others, but she felt ready. As if summoned by their arrival, the sea began to rise. A massive wave surged toward them, towering high above their heads. The children gasped in unison, but before the wave could crash down upon them, Lila raised her stone. The water obeyed her command, slowing its descent until it hovered in mid-air, suspended by her will. And she said through gritted teeth, straining to hold the water in place, "I'll hold it off, but you need to find the source of the flood." Ethan didn't need to be told twice. He dashed forward Kyan area right behind him, following the river upstream toward a distant whirlpool that churned angrily in the center of the ocean. The closer they got, the more violent the water became, the waves crashing against rocks and tearing apart the shoreline. At the heart of the storm, they found a massive stone tower rising out of the sea, its surface slick with water. At the top of the tower, a swirling vortex of water spun wildly, feeding the chaos that threatened to consume the aquatic kingdom. This was the source of the flood, the place where the balance of the water element had been disrupted. Kainavar the Thinker scanned the scene with narrowed eyes. "We need to stop that vortex," he said, pointing to the top of the tower. But Arya stepped forward, her stone glowing with the power of earth. "I can create a path for us, but you will need to do the rest." With a nod of determination, Arya raised her stone and thrust her hands toward the ground. The earth responded to her command, rising from the ocean floor to form a solid bridge that stretched toward the tower. The waves crashed against it, but the bridge held firm. "Let's go," Ethan shouted, charging across the bridge with his fire stone in hand. The others followed close behind, the roaring ocean surrounding them on all sides. As they reached the base of the tower, the water began to rise even faster, threatening to engulf them. Ethan, never one to back down from a challenge, raised his fire stone and sent a blast of heat toward the water. The steam hissed as it evaporated, giving them just enough time to climb the slick stone steps that wound their way to the top. The climb was treacherous. The tower shook with the force of the water, swirling around it, and the spray from the ocean made every step slippery and dangerous. But they pressed on, driven by the knowledge that the fate of the aquatic kingdom and possibly their own world depended on their success. At the top of the tower, they found the source of the vortex, a massive stone pillar etched with ancient symbols and glowing with the power of the water element. The vortex spiraled around it, feeding the chaos below. Kai stepped forward, his windstone pulsing in his hand. "I think I can disrupt the vortex," he said, his voice steady, "but I'll need your help." Ethan grinned. "Let's do it." Together, they raised their stones, fire, wind, and earth, channeling their combined power toward the pillar. The wind howled, the fire roared, and the earth trembled as they focused their energy on the swirling vortex. For a moment, it seemed as if the vortex was too strong, the forces of water too chaotic to control. But then with a final burst of energy, the vortex began to slow. The water calmed, the waves subsided, and the violent storm that had threatened to tear the aquatic kingdom apart dissipated into nothing. Exhausted but triumphant, the children collapsed on the stone floor of the tower, panting for breath. The ocean below them was calm once more, the waters clear and still. Lila, having held the wave at bay for as long as she could, collapsed onto the shore, her energy spent. But as the waves calmed, she felt a surge of relief wash over her. They had done it. The aquatic kingdom was safe. Ariane appeared before them once more, his shimmering form materializing in the air above the tower. "You have passed the trial of water," he said, his voice filled with quiet pride. "But your journey is not over. The wind awaits you." Without giving them time to rest, Orion gestured toward the east, where the floating islands of the Sky Isles hovered in the distance. The children groaned but knew they couldn't stop now. The balance of the elements depended on them. They traveled eastward, their bodies weary, but their spirits unbroken. As they approached the Sky Isles, the wind grew stronger, whipping at their clothes and tugging at their hair. The islands themselves floated high above the ground, suspended in mid-air by the force of the wind. Kai, holding his windstone tightly, felt a surge of energy course through. This was his element. He could feel it in every gust of wind, every swirl of air around him. But as they neared the Sky Isles, he realized that the wind here was out of control. The islands were unstable, shaking and threatening to collapse as the windstorms raged around them. "We need to stabilize the islands," Kai said, his eyes scanning the chaotic scene before them. "If we don't, they'll fall and the wind element will be lost." Ethan, ever the optimist, cracked his knuckles. "Let's do this." Working together, the children used their stones to counter the raging wind. Ethan's side fire blazed against the cold gusts, pushing back the storm. Lila summoned streams of water to cool the heated air, while Aria used her earth stone to anchor the islands in place, preventing them from being swept away by the wind. But it was Kai who truly shone in this trial. With his windstone in hand, he guided the air currents, redirecting the chaotic winds and bringing them under control. He could feel the wind responding to his every command, obeying his will as he calmed the storm. Slowly but surely, the winds began to die down. The island stopped shaking, and the air became still once more. Kai lowered his hand, a triumphant smile spreading across his face. "We did it," he said, his voice filled with quiet pride. "The wind is balanced." Orion appeared before them once more, his face solemn. "You have passed the trials of fire, water, and wind, but one trial remains, the trial of earth." The children exchanged nervous glances. They had come so far, but the hardest trial was yet to come. The earth element had been corrupted, and they knew they would face their greatest challenge, yet in the stone land. Without another word, they set off toward the final trial. The earth beneath their feet was solid and unyielding, but there was a sense of foreboding in the air. They could feel it, something dark, something powerful, waiting for them in the heart of the stone land. As they neared the center of the stone lands, the ground began to shake. A massive figure emerged from the earth, its body made of stone and earth, its eyes glowing with a malevolent light. This was Zoran, the ancient being who had corrupted the earth element. Zoran towered above them, his voice a low rumble that shook the ground. "You think you can restore balance?" he sneered. "I am the earth. I am unbreakable." The children stood their ground, their stones glowing brightly in their hands. They had faced fire, water, and wind. They had come too far to back down now. Together, they raised their stones, channeling the power of all four elements. Fire, water, wind, and earth swirled together, combining their energy into a single powerful force. Zoran roared, the ground trembling beneath him, but the children stood firm. With a final powerful blast of energy, they unleashed the full power of the elements, shattering Zoran's stone body and restoring the earth element to balance. The ground stopped shaking. The air grew still, and a deep, peaceful silence settled over the stone lands. The balance of the elements had been restored. Orion appeared before them one last time, his face filled with pride. "You have done it," he said, his voice filled with reverence. "The balance is restored, and both your world and the elemental realm are safe." The children exchanged tired smiles. They had completed the trials, and though they were exhausted, they felt a deep sense of accomplishment. Orion opened a portal before them, the shimmering light offering a way back to their own world. "Your journey is over, but remember, balance is fragile. You may be called upon again one day." With that, the children stepped through the portal, leaving the elemental realm behind. They returned to Westwood, the stones now mere relics of their incredible adventure. But they would never forget the trials they had faced, nor the power they had wielded to save two worlds.